This is my Formosa 41 sailboat. It's 41 feet on the deck and 51 feet overall when I lowered the mizzen boom down in the back. It was built in 1975 in Taipei, Taiwan. And even though it looks like a wooden boat, it's the hull is solid fiberglass, and it's 3-inch thick solid fiberglass below the waterline. This boat is very strong and seaworthy, and it's a ketch rig, so it has 2 masts. So the purpose of this video today is to show the interior layout, what it's like inside. Let's go inside and take a look around. This is the main companionway, or the main entrance into my boat, and you go down a ladder to get in. So that's entering the boat from the cockpit, and it enters into the galley and the dinette area. So on the left side of the photograph, you can see the galley, and on the right side is the dinette, and it seats 4 people. You can sit and eat there. And so there's my Chinese wok hanging up on the bulkhead there, and some utensils. And then down on the countertop you can see I have some spices and stuff there. And but I did build this really cool spice rack, and you can see it on the upper left side of the photo. So it's a spice rack that I made out of acrylic clear plastic, so you can read the labels of the spice bottles. And so it's above the curtain on the left side, and it's kind of hard to see, but you can see my electrical panel there. That's the black strip there by the companionway ladder. And then I have an opening port light, so it's a round window there, and I can open that up. And so that's the entrance into the boat. And this is my dinette area. So like I said, it seats 4 people, though the table's kind of small, narrow. And I thought about turning this area into just one huge chart table, so it'd seat 2 people facing forward. And so I'd extend the that table farther forward of the boat, so you're looking aft right now at the boat and the entrance. And but that table drops down, and it actually turns into a double berth, a double bunk. And you can see next to my electrical panel there, the black strip, there's a hatch that opens up there, and it slides back under. And so when you lower the table down, it turns into a double berth, so your feet go underneath the cockpit a little ways. It's not very far, only about a foot or 2. And actually only about 1 foot. It's not you don't need to go in that far with your legs to lay flat. But so yeah, there's cushions you lay down on there, and it turns into another bed, so that will sleep 2 people, kind of, but I'm never going to use it for that. I have my own stateroom where I sleep. And so I I don't know if I'm going to leave it as a dinette for 4. I like sitting on both sides. I mean, it's nice kind of sitting facing aft and looking out through the doorway outside, and I like that. But I also like sitting on the other side looking forward, especially if I'm sitting there navigating and stuff. I want a forward facing chart table, even though you can get used to a chart table facing anyway. But I just kind of like the forward facing chart table. Oh, beautiful teak interior. I love it. That's the nice thing about buying a boat from the mid 70s. Not only are they really well built, generally, but a lot of them have solid teak interiors, and this boat is no exception. So, teak wood is pretty much an endangered species these days, and so it's super expensive, and most boat builders now are using other woods. Or if it's teak, it's like real thin teak, like wallpaper, veneer. So yeah, I just love this boat. And I like that it doesn't have a headliner over the roof, the ceiling. A lot of boats in the 80s, they started putting in these vinyl headliners, and I mean they're okay, but they kind of look like the ceiling of a 737, you know. And but I have these beams, and then they're trimmed with teak strips of wood, and just a lot nicer, though not as well insulated. So it gets a little warmer in the summer and a little colder in the winter, um, probably than if I had a headliner on the ceiling. But so the black cylinder in the foreground is a wood stove that I built, and I actually built it for my other boat that I had before this one. And so I went ahead and installed it on this boat when I got it, and did some tile work there behind the stove, the diamond-shaped tiles there. And I still got to finish some of that tile work. I haven't completed it. And above the wood stove, you can see my lantern hanging up there, and that actually came with the boat when it was built. The boat builder includes an oil lamp, and so it's really cool, hanging oil lamp. And then you can see over on the left is my galley, and I had an alcohol stove, and I've had two of them. One on my old boat. I cooked dinner one night and shut the stove down, and a couple hours later I crawled in my bunk to go to sleep and closed my eyes, and I could see light coming through my eyelid, and I thought, what the hell is that? And I opened up my eyes, and I just happened to be laying at just the right height, kind of almost like this photograph here. My bunk was on catty corner from my galley, and I could see light coming through this crack on my stove. So I opened up the top of the stove. You can open it up to clean around the burners, and the stove was on fire. There was a leak, and so luckily I woke up and saw that. I might not have survived the night, so I decided, yeah, I'm getting rid of alcohol stoves in my life completely, and so I yanked this one out of this boat. I never used the one in this boat. It was clogged up. The previous owner told me it wasn't working, and I think that was the problem with it. But I just went ahead and removed it and installed an induction stove top and a full convection oven. So that's what you see there. And it's gimbaled, so it tilts when the boat's heeled over, sailing. It levels itself out. Above my stove and oven, up by the ceiling, you can see my spice rack that I was mentioned earlier. And it's made out of acrylic, and you can see the labels. And I just couldn't figure out where to put a spice rack on this boat, and it took me a couple of years to figure it out. And I thought about putting it down lower by that teak beam, but it was too low and it would be in the way. So I just happened to come up with the idea of putting it up by the ceiling, and it worked out great. And I got, I think, around 35 bottles of spices up there. And I like to cook, so I use a lot of spices when I cook. I like food to have taste to it. And so that's my galley pretty much. So it's stove, oven, sink, and then the countertop down there, the white countertop, and right above the counter is a microwave. So it's the black rectangle back there in the corner. And then under the white countertop, if you open it up, it's top loading refrigeration. So it's a freezer and a refrigerator. And so that's my galley. This is my main cabin. And some people refer to this as the saloon. Other people refer to it as the salon. It's spelt with two O's, so I believe it's pronounced saloon. It has two settees, one on each side of the boat, and one to starboard, one to port. And you can sleep on the settees, so they're long enough you can sleep on them. And that works good because when you're sailing, the boat generally heels over to one side or the other, depending on the point of sail that you're on. And so you can choose which side to sleep on, which would be more comfortable depending on the sea conditions. And you'll notice a clock and barometer in the foreground on top. And I've been thinking about moving those and actually putting a window up there looking forward. So it'd be kind of like a pilot house where you can look forward. You'd pretty much have to stand up to see out forward and see the horizon. But what would be nice is that I could sit at my chart table and look up and see the mainsail and the jib sail. So I can kind of keep an eye on that while I'm inside the boat. And you can see the painting that's on the bulkhead, and that is a oil painting that I did. I used to be a whitewater river guide in Oregon, and I took photographs when I was rafting. I've done other rivers as well besides that river. And then I do paintings based on my photographs, and that rapid right there is on the Rogue River, and it is called Slim Pickens. So it's a real narrow area that you have to run through. They put a couple dams upstream, so the river runs higher than it used to. You were forced to go through there in the old days, but now because the river runs higher most of the time, you can actually go straight down the river and avoid that area. But I prefer to, if I have a choice to run a difficult part of the rapid or an easy part of the rapid, a lot of times I'll choose the difficult part because it's more fun and more challenging. So that's one of my paintings. You can see my wood stove sitting on the engine box and in the foreground. And there used to be a table that folds out, and that was original with the boat when it was built, and it got removed. I don't know if it was the previous owner that removed it, but it didn't have a table when I bought it. So I needed a table, and I couldn't figure out what I was going to do. And I saved the companionway doors off of my old boat, and they have glass windows in it. And I was wondering, what am I going to do with these doors? They're not going to fit on this boat. They were really nice doors. I didn't want to get rid of them, but I didn't have no use for them. And I needed a table, so one day I thought, hey, maybe I can use those doors as a table. And sure enough, that's what I did. I was going to originally remove the glass and put wood in where the glass is. And I thought about it, and I thought, no, the glass is great because if I have a hot dish or a sweaty glass, it works like a coaster. I can just set the glass that I'm drinking out of, if it's sweaty or something like that, or a hot bowl of soup or whatever. I can set it on the glass table, and it won't damage the wood. And another good thing is that I can, when I reach down, if I drop something on the floor, let's say under the table, I can reach down and look through the glass and see what I'm reaching for without having to crawl under the table. And so that works out really good. And so, yeah, that table, those doors are made out of teak. The table that used to be doors is made out of teak and holly, so it's trimmed in holly, and it's actually works out great. It fits perfect. The only thing is, you can see those two doors on the bulkhead there, and the one on the right goes into my stateroom where I sleep, and the one on the left goes into the head. And because of my table now, I can't open the door on the left all the way. I can open it just enough to squeeze through and get into the head, but it doesn't really matter because inside my stateroom there's another door that also goes into the head. So usually what I do is I just open the door on the right, go into my stateroom, and then open the door going into the head. So it works out really good. Here's a little better view of my table, and you can see my wood stove and the tile work that I've done. And I chose that tile pattern because I like the black and white tile, especially the white tile, because I put a LED strip around the bottom base below the stove and where that teak railing is. And I don't have it in there now, but I was experimenting with it, and it was multicolor LED strip, and so the tile will turn the color of the light. So if it's red light, the white tile turns red. If it's green light, it turns green. If it's blue light, it turns blue, whatever color I choose. So it looks really cool. And you can see the settee and the backrest cushion there. That cushion is actually for my bunk in my stateroom. My bunk pulls out, and then you put that strip, that cushion there, that skinny one that I'm using for a backrest, on the bunk, and it makes the bunk into a double berth, so two people can sleep there. And but I have it set for one person right now, and so I use that cushion for my backrest here in the boat. And because the wood stove sits on the engine box, I can't really sit all the way to the back there where the stove is, because my legs can't go there because the engine box. So it doesn't matter that it curves forward a little bit because it's kind of a little long for that area. But I have doors back there for storage, and it makes it easier to get into the doors, and then I can also put stuff behind the cushion there, a little room to store extra stuff. This is the head or bathroom, and it has a separate shower stall, which is really nice. A lot of boats have what's called a wet head, where they don't have a separate shower stall, and so you just shower in the main part of the head, so the sink and the toilet and everything gets wet. So yeah, having a separate shower stall is really nice. And it also has good storage. You can see the two doors there, teak doors, and it's a big area behind the doors there. I can store a lot of stuff, so I store boat cleaning stuff in there. And there's a little storage under the sink, but there's also hoses and stuff under there for the water and the sink, drainage, and other things. So it's a pretty nice head. It works great. This is my stateroom where I sleep. It's a Pullman berth, so it's not all the way forward in the front of the boat, so it's back a little ways. the very forward cabin, there is a bunk in there, a single bunk, and normally the very forward part of a boat is not the most comfortable place to sleep, especially in heavy seas, because the bow of the boat moves up and down the most. So a Pullman berth is nice because it's a little farther back, and so that's where I sleep. And there's another one of my paintings that I've done. That's the Mokelumne River in California, and based on one of my photographs that I've taken on many of my river trips. And that quilt on the bed, my sister had my aunt build that quilt for me for a Christmas present when I was 16 years old. And it's still around, and it's getting a little tattered. I need to get some restoration work done on it. I absolutely love that quilt, and I like the brown color because it matches the wood. But I was telling my sister about, I need to get it fixed, and she offered me another quilt. And there it is. And you can see that it's almost exactly the same as my other quilt, except it's red instead of brown. And you can also probably assume that my aunt built this quilt as well. So she did it with other friends. She didn't do it by herself. It was a lot of work. So yeah, my sister, when she had my quilt built for me for a Christmas present, she also had my aunt build her one. And the cool part is this quilt is decades old, and it's never been used. When she got it, she just stored it and never used it. So this is now my quilt, and it's awesome. I love it. And so now I got two quilts, and this one's in perfect shape. I mean, it's awesome. I love it, and she gave it to me over Thanksgiving, so I've used it for a week now. It's now been used for 1 week, and it's absolutely beautiful. I absolutely love this quilt. The coolest quilts I've ever seen were these two quilts, and they're awesome. So special thank you to my sister. I got a really great sister, obviously. And this is the forward cabin, and it has a single bunk. And you can see the mast, the main mast, on the right side of the photograph. And I didn't mention it when I was talking about my main cabin, the cabin with the wood stove and the table that I made out of the doors from my old boat. But a lot of sailboats have the main mast, or depending if they have two masts or not. My boat happens to have two. It's a catch rig, but if it's like a sloop or a cutter, it would have one mast. But a lot of times the mast on a lot of sailboats go right through the main cabin and right where the table is, and it's right in the middle of the room. And when I bought this boat, and I was looking at other boats, and even in the past, my boat I had before that I bought in Santa Cruz, I did not want a mast in the middle of the main cabin. For one thing, if you're sitting on one settee, which is like a couch on one side, and you happen to have a flat screen on the other side, which is the best place for it, the mast is right in the way because it's right in the middle of the room. It goes right through the table usually, and I just, no way could I deal with that. So my last boat was deck stepped, and it had a doorway that had extra reinforcement on each side, so it was like a little hallway. And so the mast did not come down into the boat This was on my other boat that I had, and there was no compression post either. So you could walk right through the boat with down the center without the mast being in the way. And so this boat, the mast is in the forward cabin, and it's right up against the bulkhead, the door, which had that painting that you just saw on it. And so it's really pretty much out of the way. And the mizzen mast is in the back, actually outside where the cockpit is, so it's not in the way of the interior either. So that's another thing I really love about this boat. And the masts are totally out of the way. So you can see this little forward cabin, and it's got storage there on the left side, and it's also the forward doors up there, the teak doors. That is the chain locker. So I have 300 feet of chain, anchor chain, and then I have a bunch of rode as well, which is rope for anchoring. And that all lives up there in the front. And so we have one little skinny bunk there. And you can see the anchor chain piled up in the chain locker. And I really like the teak and how they have the look like stripes. Looks really cool. And then there's a little workbench there on the side and more storage above that. So this is my Formosa 41, 1975, designed by William Garden, Canadian naval architect, and the boat was built in Taipei, Taiwan. And they built two versions of this boat. The aft cockpit boat, which is this boat, and then they also built a center cockpit boat, and the center cockpit boat has an aft cabin, which would be nice, but I prefer this interior because the center cockpit kind of breaks up the interior more, makes it kind of smaller areas, where this has a bigger area. It's kind of nice to have, larger rooms to be in, a larger area. You don't feel so confined. So that's what I like about this boat. Center cockpit boats tend to be more wet and heavy weather. When you have waves splashing over the side of the boat or the bow, they tend to come back and just soak you if you're in the center cockpit. So aft cockpits tend to be a little drier and rougher weather. And so this is my boat, and the layouts in those two versions are basically pretty much the same. The same design was built in other boatyards too in Taiwan. One of them is called I think it's the CT, and there's a couple other ones as well. And they're a little bit different, but overall I think the hull is exactly the same hull design. So at any rate, I really love this boat. I just wished it had a little more carrying capacity because of the long ends. That's the problem with a long-ended boat, is you have overhang in the front and overhang in the back and a shorter water line, which means that you got all that weight now that's on the hull. In a shorter water line, you just can't carry as much supplies and things. If you had a longer water line, then you could, no overhangs like the modern boats, then you can carry more. Usually, depending on the boat, if the boat's designed for racing and it's designed for real light displacement, then not so much. But this is a heavy displacement boat, and what's nice about heavy displacement boats is in rough weather, they tend to plow through the waves more. Where a light displacement boat that's more of a racing boat, they tend to float on the surface more, so they're more bouncy and rough in heavy weather. Where heavy displacement boats tend to be more comfortable in heavy weather, and that can give you a feeling of safety and comfort. So, cruising boats are cruising boats, and racing boats are racing boats. They're two different worlds, and they make boats where they combine both, called racer cruisers, and but this is just an old traditional design, traditional boat. And so at any rate, if you found this video to be helpful or entertaining, please like and subscribe.